It is not always a fun time out on the water, kind of like we'll see over the next few minutes in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Welcome back, guys. I'm your host, Broncos Guru, and let's go ahead and get this episode started. Our first incident we'll report on this week's gonna be a little beach time down in Brazil. Last week, this video started circulating around social media networks of this yacht beached somewhere near Angra dos Reis on the green coast of Rio de Janeiro. The story that's floating around on the internet behind this one right now is that this Azimut ran a little too close to some rocks, wound up hitting some, and started to sink. And in order to save the vessel, the captain actually ran this up on the beach to prevent this from happening. One of the more interesting parts of this story is this yacht appears to be the same yacht that was recently featured on Forbes Brazil as one of the most expensive yachts in the country, which will likely make a heavy recovery bill as they try and get this back off the beach and back out to sea. Our next incident to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to Santa Cruz, California, where a dozen children participating in a sailing school off the coast had to be rescued this past week as a large swell of waves came in and overturned their vessels, sending over a dozen kids into the water. Several of the bystanders, including surfers and rescue personnel who witnessed the event, mentioned they were quite surprised to see the sailing school actually out and in session. A high surf warning had been issued earlier in the day advising against potentially dangerous waves that could reach heights up to 25 foot, which could easily lead into a dangerous situation just like it did in this incident. Here you'll see some of the local surfers immediately dive into action trying to help these kids.
The white water just tumbled them and they were just like dominoes flying through the water, and 5 little kids were saved by some great surfers.
Fortunately, reaction times were pretty fast with this one, and within 20 minutes, Harbor Patrol had arrived and all 20 people who had been tossed into the water had been accounted for and there were no serious injuries. Our next incident on Boating News this week is going to remind you that it's not always as it seems, kind of like right here. Here we're going to see images of the famous rapper Lil Bow Wow out on the boat with his crew having a good time. But of course this boat's too small for this many people, not really following COVID protocols, and being a rich rapper out on a small vessel like this really doesn't have a whole lot of cool factor to it. And I'll tell you what, Twitter went nuts. The memes were crazy of everybody bashing Bow Wow for being on his little boat. But the fun doesn't stop there, because shortly after posting that video, Bow Wow posted another video of him out on a yacht with his same crew having a good time. But this is where things get a little tricky and things are not quite always as they seem. Here we can see the rapper over here on this yacht having a good time, but when you go back and investigate the video footage of them out on the small boat, you'll notice there's a little bit of nuances going on that kind of leads you to believe this isn't quite as it seems. If you look at this young lady here and the captain of this vessel both wearing the same color matching polos, they are obviously yacht crew, and this is just the dinghy heading to the yacht. Our next incident to make the boating news this week really isn't boating news. Actually, this is a crew out on a beach having a good time, but here you're going to see this young lady is struggling in the surf. And of course these guys are trying to help her, but things aren't going well. But don't worry, the pro surfer Mikey Wright just happens to be on this same beach in Hawaii and literally had a hold my beer moment. That's right, he said hold my beer and watch this as he ran to rescue this lady from the heavy surf and jagged rocks on this beach. Mikey Wright's friends actually did record the whole episode and they were able to post these 2 videos over to Instagram, but it's just one of those crazy wild scenes. Mikey winds up saving this lady, but it's not often that you hear somebody with a mullet say hold my beer and the scene actually turns out to be something more like this. Typically when we hear that phrase hold my beer on this channel, more than likely that's going to be a scene that winds up on Boneheaded Boaters of the Week and not a scene like this, but way to go on the rescue, Mikey. While Mr. Wright did full send it down this beach to go down there and assist with the rescue, our next incident on the Boating News of the Week is going to be a full send as well, but of a different kind. I have no earthly idea how in the world you mess something up this bad where you can get a yellowfin this deep into the woods. These images are from Jamie's Towing, who was actually sent out to fish this thing out of the woods. I tried to get as much information as I could, but there really wasn't a whole lot of information available. I'm being told there's no injuries reported, but I find that hard to believe. But if you happen to see a used boat listing for a yellowfin pop up in the Fort Myers area over the next couple weeks saying that it's in perfect condition, rinsed every time, you might want to check it against this. Our next event's going to take us down to Florida, where the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is offering a reward for information that helps authorities find and prosecute whomever wrote Trump on the back of this manatee. Sometimes you can't make this stuff up. This particular manatee had a thick layer of green algae on its back, and somebody actually took a scraper and actually scraped the word Trump into that algae. The manatee itself does appear to be okay with no permanent injuries, but if you have any information on this, please let the authorities know. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out in your waterways, be sure to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram and let me know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Beat Cal 2, Mark Brown 2006, Marvin Maverick, and Rob Brooks did this week. And if you haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.